Hello there, welcome. I'm Hal Moss, and this channel is called Hell of a Pencil Portrait. Now, I know you're not familiar with me, so let me introduce you to a little bit of my work. This is a graphite portrait I created of supermodel Christy Turlington. Here's one you'll probably recognize if you're a football fan. This is of New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady. This is a personal friend of mine. He is a nationally renowned stand-up comedian named Norm Stoltz. I also enjoy drawing dogs and cats. In this upcoming series of videos, starting with this one, I'm going to teach you some basic drawing techniques using primarily graphite pencil. These videos, at least for now, are going to be geared toward the beginning artists. Those of you who perhaps enjoy drawing, but you don't necessarily think that you have the talent to produce good drawings. I believe you have far more talent than you think, and the aim here is to bring that out of you so that you surprise even yourself. The type of art that I do, and I will teach you to do, is called hyperrealism. Now, there are several methods that can be employed to produce really nice-looking work, and if you look all over YouTube, you'll find artists who will espouse a particular type of method. What I am going to do is start with you by using a simple, most basic technique that can become the catalyst toward making you really appreciate your own work and thus have a lot more fun creating your drawings. Okay, if you're ready to begin, let's see how much we can accomplish in this first session. All right, there are many ways to teach you how to draw, but if you have not drawn much before or you've not been very serious about it, never really thought you could do very well, we're going to take you to the most basic way that there is to get you to learn how to draw much better than you ever thought that you could right away, and that is called the grid method. It's the grid method. What we're going to do today is we're going to take this particular photograph of this dog. This is a dog I used to have for 8.5 years. He was my best friend named Koa. He was a Lab Shar-Pei mix. We are going to draw Koa, okay? And the way we're going to do that, we're going to take a pencil and we're going to take a ruler, and I always like these clear acrylic types of rulers, and we're going to mark off on this particular picture, we're going to mark off some squares, and we're going to do that in 1-inch increments as we mark these off. These are, by the way, on 8x10 paper that we're going to be used. The photo is 8x10, and the paper that we're going to be drawing on, which is a Strathmore 400 series paper, is also 8x10. So we're going to mark off each 1-inch notch all the way until we get to the 8, okay? And we'll do it on this side as well. By the way, in the series that we're going to be continuing to bring you, just starting with this one, and we're going to go on through a whole lot of other points as each succeeding video is brought to you. Hopefully you're going to like it enough to want to subscribe to us so that you're going to be able to know when these new videos are available to you so that you're able to follow along, add these little different new points that we give you to your drawing technique so that you're going to be able to draw like you never really thought that you could before. Let's go over here and also mark off our 1-inch notches on the side of the paper. There are lots of things that we're going to do in the coming videos. This particular one is going to be just devoted to doing the outline of the dog. This is one of those situations where even though you didn't think you could draw a circle or a straight line, doesn't matter because that's not what we're asking you to do here. We're just asking you to follow along with this technique to be able to draw the dog's outline, which involves a lot of different shapes. But when you see how we're putting them together through the grid method, you'll see how easy that is and how surprisingly good you can be at drawing right out of the box. Because I believe that the more confidence you get in your own ability to draw something that looks good, the more enthusiastic you're going to be about wanting to continue to do it. I'm going to move this paper over to the side here in just a moment. We will come back to it and draw the squares onto the paper as well. And again, it is what I used, in this case, Strathmore 400 series paper. Okay. Another one here. May not be showing up all that well on the camera because I'm using a very light grade of pencil. These are 4H gauge artist pencils that I use. Those are the lightest of the gauges of artist pencils. The hardest, the H meaning a hard level of graphite. They come in H and B gauges through the numbers. H's are the hard ones. B's are the softer graphite, and those are the ones that you're going to use to draw your darker lines. We'll get into that as we get into each succeeding video. We'll talk about more about the various pencils that you can use for whatever situation you're in. They're kind of like golf clubs. You use a certain club for a certain situation on the golf course. That's the same thing with these artists' pencils. You use certain pencils for certain situations that you come across when you're trying to create your drawing. Hang in there because we are getting close to being done with this one. And this will wrap up the squares that are on our drawing, at least what will turn into our drawing. This is actually the photo of Koa. Go back here. And we will do the same thing on our 8 by 10 inch sheet of paper. Again, we mark off the notches. Make sure you can see that when we're doing it. Now, I'll tell you that you can use any measurement that you would like. I used to use centimeters. I used to be a little bit tighter with the drawings and used centimeters, which would create smaller squares, but I find, at least my own preference, that using them in inches and creating slightly larger squares makes it a little bit easier, and I'll tell you when we get toward the end why that is. And I will also caution you that if you're doing your lines, your grid on the paper, not the photo, but the paper, make sure that you do those lines very, very lightly. And that goes back to the idea of having this light grade, this light level of artist pencil. The 4H is what I'm using to draw these grid lines, because you want those lines to be as light as you can possibly make them and still be able to work with them. I want to also make it, in this case, dark enough. I'll make it a little bit darker than I might otherwise because I want you to be able to see on the camera exactly what we're doing here. I would normally be working with a little bit lighter lines. If I were using the grid method for this drawing, I would be working with lighter lines than I'm going to be using to show you what we're doing here. Okay, so now let us get the lines in there and complete the grid setup process. And again, I'm going to do them a little bit lighter than I would have normally done them, or at least a little bit darker than I would have normally done them. Were I working on something that I wasn't all that concerned was going to, whether or not it would show up on the camera. But in this case, they will. Let's go over and do them this way, and our procedure to set up the drawing will be done. We're almost finished and ready to get to the fun part. And that's it. Now we're all set. The grid has been set. Now we're going to go back to our photo of the drawing, and we're going to do something that you probably did and maybe still do at times, which is called play a little game of connect the dots. I want you to take a look at the top of this dog's head. Let's line these particular squares up here for right now. I want you to take a look at the top of our dog's head and see where the edges of his skull cross these lines, these little squares. And we're going to replicate that up here on this paper. So let's start over here, right around the top, and show you that over here, this particular part of the skull crosses right about there, a little bit above the horizontal line and at where the vertical is. So let's just maybe make a little bit of a mark here. Let's go back to this next one to the right, see where this part of his head crosses the line, and we see that it is just a slight bit above that. And when that happens, we're also using a little bit of a half moon type of a shape to get from here to here, okay? We're gonna do it that way. Now we go from here over to this part of his skull, and as you can see, it just about crosses right where the horizontal and vertical lines meet. So we're gonna go take this little mark, put it there, and again, it isn't a straight line to get us here. It's gonna be a little bit of a curved line. And you draw it very, very lightly, because if you want to erase it, if you draw it lightly, it's very much easier to erase, okay? So that's what we're doing here. Let us now continue on this part of his head. It's going downward toward his forehead, and it crosses at this point, maybe about a third of the way down this vertical line. So that's where we're going to put our next mark. And that's where we're going to draw the continuation of this line. And again, you don't have to do, first of all, very hard. You can do it very lightly, and also use it in little short strokes, not a continuous line, because if you do, you might go off course, and you don't want to necessarily do that and go back and have to constantly, needlessly erase. Just do it with these little, short, light strokes. That way, you can kind of slowly but surely guide yourself from this mark to this mark. See how that goes? Now we're going to go to the next one, which is the part of his forehead right between his eyes as we're looking at this profile shot of him. His head crosses this horizontal line about 2/3 of the way over from the right. So that's where we're going to line up this next mark. And to get there, as you can see, we have a little bit of a bump in the forehead shape, going from here out, and then we will bring it down just a little bit, contour it that way. So we will just go out a little bit here, like this. And then bring it down, like that. The next one that we're going to shoot for is this part of his snout, or his nose, which is just about, I want to call it maybe a 1/16 of an inch, maybe an 1/8 of an inch above this horizontal line on that particular vertical line. So we'll go down here to do that. See how the pattern of how we're working goes? And again, as we're looking at this particular part of his forehead and into how it contours toward his nose, you have just a little bit of ridge coming down here. It comes out and then straight down. And that's the part where the nose is going to meet in our picture. So we're going to take this part here, bring it out just a little bit toward this vertical line, stop right about 1/3 of the way down, which is right where this ends, and then start straight down. And here is where the nose is going to join our picture, and it crosses, this part of the nose crosses 2 different points. It crosses just above this horizontal line over here, and just about over here, this vertical line. So a very, very small part of this square is taken up by his nose. And that's how we're going to work that nose line there. And as you can also see, the nose continues up just a little bit toward this eye, just a little bit. So let's move it up like that. All right. Now, let's finish the rest of this head. As you now see how our pattern is, you just simply look at where your drawing is supposed to lie in relation to each of those squares. Take it square by square, and we'll take it all the way down and around, as you see where his head is positioned within all of these squares. Let's take that around right now. So you see what we've managed to do here in just the last couple of minutes, just simply by following a kind of a connect the dots formula, taking our lines, running them through each and every individual square and the positions that they show up on the photo, and we create them on our paper doing it this way. And there you have it. There is the outline of our dog. Now the next video, we're going to fill in more of the blanks with this dog, and we're going to be able to figure out how to do some of the features, darkening in his nose, his eyes, and we'll even get into a little bit of the technique of being able to get some of that hair recreated. But what you've done here is just managed very easily, didn't even realize you could do it, did you? That you could outline this dog in a very accurate way. We're going to do it again Next video, we're going to try to fill in a few more of these blanks so that you can turn this dog into something very, very real looking. You didn't think you could do it, did you? Hey, I hope you enjoyed our first venture into making you a little bit better artist. If so, I hope you'll click that like button and subscribe to this channel. I'll be back again with even more tips to send you down the road toward becoming the artist that even you didn't think you would be. And we'll do it right here on Hell of a Pencil Portrait. Catch you in the next video.